Okay.
All right. Thanks, Janet. I really appreciate that. So I am going to launch into a presentation here. So I will be sharing my screen. But anybody who wants to turn your camera on today, feel free to do that. And then also, if you want to drop questions in the chat while we're going through the presentation, we'll try to answer some of those here and there, or even if you really have a burning question that you want to uh, throw out to whatever's in the middle of the presentation, I can't do that all the time, but I will try to answer a question here or there to make this a little bit more interactive as we go forward. And of course, if you all have questions afterwards, feel free to do that. All right. Could everybody just kind of drop in the comments where are you coming from today? Where are you? Maybe what's your business, or what's the name of your business, or what do you do? Just so we have a little more insight and connection with everybody. And that I will get started here. And I don't even know if I can see the chat or not, Janet. I see it here, but I'm not sure if anybody's put anything in it, because I don't see anybody put anything in it right just yet. All right. And boom. All right. Okay, guys. So this is Transform Your Habits, Transform Your Business, How Small Changes Can Multiply Your Success. It's one of my favorite topics. And just a little bit about me. My name is Damian
Um,
Nord.
Sorry, Damon. It looks like you've got like an overlay on top of the slide itself, like it's like the presenters.
Oh, is it showing you?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on. Let's see here. Well, that's not cool.
Sorry.
Uh, huh. All right. I don't know what I'm gonna have. I bet. I wonder if that's. I
I didn't
wonder
notice
if
that
just
when we tried it earlier.
do what?
I didn't notice it when we tried
Well,
it
I
earlier.
wasn't. I wasn't in a view yet. All right. Let me. I may. Man. All right. Let me turn this off. That's gonna stink because
There. Oh,
yeah, that's not even. I mean, I can do it this way, but I don't have my
there you go.
notes.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't have my notes, which kind of sucks. Let me. I wonder if it would do that if we were in the other mode. We may try the other mode next time. Okay. Um, Hold on just a moment.
Sure thing. Yeah.
Your shared screen can be seen only by host and co-host. Okay. All right. I'm not sure what that's about either. All right.
We'll do
Well, we're
that.
just gonna
Okay.
go and see. We're gonna go and see what we got here, and I'm not exactly sure how this is gonna roll now.
So, Damien, let me ask folks to put in the chat, can you see his presentation? Because I did just toggle that off. Let me have you, they can see it. Okay, go right ahead, Damien.
Okay, great. All right, so my name is Damian Nordmann. My business is Phoenix Dragon Coaching. I am a business coach and a mindset coach. I've worked with hundreds of students and clients for the past 30 years. I also help to 30x a branch of a nationally recognized self-development brand. And I help business owners and entrepreneurial minded professionals to attract more clients, increase revenue, transform habits, which is what we're talking about today, leverage the power of leadership, and discover business strategies that work for you. And just some fun things about me: I'm also an aspiring TV show creator and self proclaimed nerd of all things science fiction, fantasy, drama, TTRPGs, and MTG for my really nerdy brothers and sisters out there. Let's see here. Okay. So before I jump into my presentation, huge shout out to James Clear and Atomic Habits. I am drawing heavily upon James Clear's work in today's presentation. I listened to his book when it came out in 2018, I believe it was. And I've used his information for years and I've worked with clients on it. I've used it for myself. So if you want more after this, I strongly recommend checking out his book, reading it, listening to it. And if you've read it or listened to it before, check it out again. I think I've listened to it 4 times. I'm on my fifth round of it, and there's just always more that you can learn from it. All right. So what is a habit anyway? A lot of people have different ideas of what that is, but essentially a habit is a neural pathway or a brain pathway that we have that we repeat over and over again, right? And we've got examples of habits, whether they're physical habits like brushing your teeth, or whether they are um, mental habits like uh, having a certain thought that comes up. Hold on a second. I think I'm gonna try this with my notes, Janet, just because I need my notes. So I'm gonna try to do this.
Sure thing.
I'm gonna try to oh my gosh. It might be a little distracting, but okay, where did that go now? Uh Here we go. Yeah, let me just try it this way, and I'm gonna minimize this. Do you all see the speaker, the note box,
Yeah,
Janet?
but
Okay.
it's minimal.
All right. I'm just gonna minimize it because I really did not prepare to the extent where I can't do this without my notes. And it may block some of the screen from time to time, but I will try to move it around if we need to. Um, so we got all kinds of crazy things we got going on today. So yeah, so you can have habits like a mental habit might be something like imagining your future successes every night as you fall to sleep, or always expecting to hit red lights whenever you get into a car when you go to work, right? And then you've got emotional habits like feeling gratitude every time you see one of your children, or reacting with anger whenever someone cuts you off in traffic. So I think it's just important for people to be aware of we have different kinds of habits, right? And I think usually people think of our physical habits, and those are a lot of what we're talking about today. But it's also important to know that there are different kinds of habits. All right, so what we're going to be talking about today is the importance of 1% changes. And this is probably one of the coolest things that I've learned from a lot of different sources, but Atomic Habits and James Clear really made that even more evident in learning from him, because all mastery and all great successes are the result of thousands of choices that compound over time, right? And you can see this in nature. Like a bamboo plant spends years, I think it's like 5 or 6 years of growth that it has in terms of its roots growing underneath before it will shoot up like 90 feet into the air in a very short amount of time. But what you don't see is all of that growth that was happening underneath the surface. And so uh, we all of our habits aggregate and accumulate in that way as well. You can also think of it like there's a really good example that James Clear uses of an ice cube, right? An ice cube can be sitting in a room that's 20 degrees Fahrenheit and it's just fine. And you can be raising the temperature up 1 degree at a time, 21, 22, 23, and so on, and nothing's really affecting that ice cube. Then you hit 32 degrees and it starts to melt. And oftentimes that's a lot of how our habits are. They are aggregate. They accumulate over time. And so really any business can be a roaring success as long as you establish the right habits at the right stages of growth for your business. And these are some diagrams that James Clear uses and talks about. And you can kind of see here where he uses this example of over here on the left, how your results a lot of time your results, if you're doing making some kind of a change, 1% shift every day for a year, well, if you can truly improve in 1% per year, per day throughout a year in one area, you actually have a 37% or 37 times increase in whatever you're doing. Whereas if you get worse by 1% every day for a year, well, your effectiveness goes pretty much to zero. And so this recognizing that what we do every day counts, and it really is these little things that count, these little habits that add up. Whereas I think a lot of times people think, we got to take massive action to have success. And especially in business, I think sometimes people get this idea you got to do all these things to have success. But it's really just the little things that add up. He also talks about this plateau of latent potential, because oftentimes the way we think we should improve is this linear sort of way. And if you look at the graph on the right, you see that linear line going up at an angle. And most people think, oh, I should improve in a linear sort of way. But that's not true either. We really don't see the tipping point or the results start to happen until a certain amount of effect happens over time as we cultivate these habits. And so he calls it the plateau of latent potential. And if you ever read the book Mastery by George Leonard, he talks about that as well in a different sort of way. But the whole idea is that it does take time for your habits to accumulate to a point where they might be considered a success or the result that you're specifically looking for. So one of the things that I teach and James Clear teaches, and I think almost anybody who is invested in self-improvement, is this whole idea that identity is where it's at, right? Changing the way you see yourself, changing your identity is the key. And it's also key to habit growth and habit change. And we all have outer identities, right? We all have identities, whether we're like a sister, a brother, a mom, a dad, whether you see yourself as a Kentuckian, an American, right? Our nationality or where we live. And then you have identities around the things that you do, right? You can be a business owner, you can be a runner, you can be a smoker. These are identities that we form through our habits and through our actions. And if you can form those kind of identities through your actions, then you can form other identities, right? So not only do you get better at what you practice, you become what you practice. And so that's where even becoming a successful business owner, a multiple six-figure earner, a millionaire, these are the results of tiny thoughts, feelings, and actions that add up to tipping points and can really result in tremendous manifestations. But being able to change your beliefs around something, that's huge. And here's a really good illustration of that. So most people are looking at, when they think about making a change, right? And this can be in your business, but this can be in your personal life as well. Most people are thinking about goals and outcomes, right? So I want to make $200,000 this year, could be an outcome that you want. Or I want to burn off 20 pounds of fat in the next few months, could be an outcome. And so that's where most people end up focusing most of their energy, like, oh, I want this thing, here's my desire, here's the goal, here's the outcome. But then often they get frustrated. It's very easy to get frustrated when you're not achieving those results. So there's two more layers in that you can go with this. And the first layer in is all about processes and your systems. These are important because when you have a system, then you don't have to worry about the goal as much. You don't have to worry about the outcome because you become so invested in the system that it becomes a real joy just to keep tweaking your system, just to keep tweaking and adjusting what it is that you are um, kind of working on a daily basis, right? And then when you really get deep into this, that's when you get into your identity. What are your beliefs? Who do you identify with? What do you identify with? And so if you identify with being, let's say, a person who struggles all the time, or a person who struggles in business, or a poor person, then it can be very hard to actually achieve success or achieve wealth. But as you begin to identify with, I'm a successful person, I'm an entrepreneur, I have a successful business, I'm a successful business owner, I'm a six-figure earner, I'm a millionaire, I I'm someone who serves my clients really well. Those operating from the inside out becomes much more powerful. And you can kind of see on these diagrams, like over here on the right, outcome-based habits where you're trying to work from the outside in tends to make things a lot harder than working from the inside out. And just to quote James Clear here, he talks about the first layer is changing your outcomes. This level is concerned with changing your results, losing weight, publishing a book, winning a championship. Most of the goals you set are associated with this level of change. The second layer is changing your process. This layer level is concerned with changing your habits and systems. So implementing a new routine at the gym, decluttering your desk for better workflow, developing a meditation practice. Most of the habits you build are associated with this level. And then, of course, the third and deepest layer is changing your identity. This level is concerned with changing your beliefs, your worldview, your self-image, your judgments about yourself and others. And most of the beliefs, assumptions, and biases you hold are associated with this level. So to keep it super simple, outcomes are about what you get, processes are about what you do, identity is about what you believe and who you are. So I did want to make one quick note, a brief note on upgrading your habits. And that is that when you start learning some of this stuff, it can be really tempting to say, man, I want to change all these different things in my life, right? Like when I first listened to Atomic Habits, it was very tempting to be like, oh man, it's so easy the way he describes this. I should just apply this to everything. And it can be very tempting to do that. But keep in mind when you're making a habit change, and that can be establishing a new habit, or when you're trying to break an old habit. It's my recommendation is go with 1 to 2 new habits at any given time, because it can take a month or 6 months or sometimes even longer to really get a habit firmly established, depending on the level of complexity and how ingrained your old habit is, and how perhaps if there's other things that you're already doing to to make a shift in that area or not. So now we're going to jump into the 4 laws of behavior change, which is really kind of the essence of what James Clear teaches and talks about. To be able to understand the four the 4 laws of habit change, it's important to understand kind of the 4 stages of a habit, or the habit loop, because every single habit that you have, everything that's part of you now, goes through this process. And the process is cue, craving, response, reward. Cue, craving, response, reward. There's 4 basic steps that happen. So here's a really great example. Let's say you're watching television and a commercial comes on for let's just say a pizza delivery service. Boom, that's a cue, right? Okay, that's stimulating you, and then craving might kick in. So you realize you haven't eaten in a while. You start getting hungry, maybe for pizza, maybe for something else, and you say, okay, now I'm hungry. I need to get something to eat. So your response might be you get up, you go to the kitchen to get a snack, right? Get something to eat. Your reward is you eat the snack, you feel physically satisfied. So that same habit loop happens for literally every single thing that you have developed a habit for, whether it's a good habit, a bad habit, or something that's relatively neutral, kind of like this example. Like being hungry isn't necessarily a bad habit. It's something that we all experience, but what stimulates you, what cues the habit, and how the craving is interpreted and your response to it, those are all things that you can tweak and have more under your control. And so we'll look at the 4 laws of habit change to understand more of how all this works. So the four laws of habit change are: one, make it obvious. That's connected to the cue. Second law, make it attractive. That is connected to the craving. The third law, make it easy. That's your response to that's connected to the response that you have for the habit. And then make it satisfying, which is the reward for the habit. So looking at the first one, make it obvious. And as you can see here, I've got a little T-Rex in the middle of things. I've got a little T-Rex in the middle of things here, and he's obviously doesn't belong there. But that's kind of the idea when you are trying to make a habit more obvious, is you want it to be kind of stand out and be big so that you know that it's time to implement this new habit that you want. Uh-oh, and now I lost my notes. Um, oh, there they are. So, um, sorry about that, guys. It's the day of technical difficulties. Um, so one of the things you can do to improve any kind of habit that you're looking at, and we're going to look at this in terms of your business here in a minute. I'm going to go through and want to make sure that I give you all some things that are relevant to your just habit transformation in general, but also I'm going to give you some things to look at for your business as well. But first, just looking at what's a way that we can improve the making it obvious part of your habit. Well, there's this thing called implementation intentions. And essentially, an implementation intention says, I will behavior at time in location. So a good example might be if you say you have an office or if you work from home, perhaps you say, I'm going to do some push-ups at noon in my office right before I go to lunch, right? That would be a way just to get into a good habit of doing some push-ups every day if you're into that sort of thing. But you can tailor this to absolutely anything. Any kind of behavior and habit you want to get going and to put into your life. There's so many studies have been done that show when you take this time to specifically tailor what you'll be doing when and where, and as far as go so far as writing that down, it's going to increase the likelihood that you're going to remember to do the habit and you're going to want to get going with it and start it. So next, let's look at habit stacking and environmental design. These are also important for what we're going to be talking about. So habit stacking is a lot of fun because you can essentially take habits that you're already doing and you can just insert a new habit after what you're already doing. So since most people have some kind of a morning routine, right? I think the vast majority of people have some things that you do, like get up out of bed, maybe you weigh yourself, maybe you brush your teeth, maybe you take a shower. I know those are things that I tend to have as part of my morning routine, and then you can just add something else in. And so I'll just use a kind of a fun example, which is if you ever have one, and I don't know if my camera's on me. Let me see. I don't know if you guys can see this or not, but like just like a pill, like one of the pill dispensers, right? Like I put my vitamins and different things in that, and I have it on the counter in my kitchen, kind of obvious when I walk into the kitchen. I see it, and I usually after I eat breakfast, but sometimes before, I'm like, oh, okay, I need to take my vitamins. It's right there. And my supplements, it's right there. It's really easy. It's organized and everything I need. I don't have to go opening pill bottles or different things. It's right there available. And so anytime you can add things in when you're already in the middle of a habit, it becomes so much easier to establish it and to remember, oh, it's time to do this now. Now, I'm also kind of bringing in environmental design a little bit as well. So there was a one of the things James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits. He talks about there was a cafeteria. I don't remember if it was in a hospital or where it was, but or in some place of business. There was a cafeteria, and they wanted to help people make more healthy choices about drinking more water instead of consuming as much soda and various other drinks. And so all they did was put water at stations at specific places that were really obvious in the cafeteria. And without even telling people that they should be healthier, people started to drink more water. And this is such a cool thing where the more you can design your home, your office, your kitchen, your bedroom, your living room, other places that you happen to be, even your car, for example, right? You can make little tweaks to your car if you want to remember to do certain things. I know I've put affirmations before, like on my steering wheel, like on a little card. And there's so many different things you can do to use your environment and to use habit stacking that really make habit change so much easier. So let's look at a few examples for applications for you within your business for the first law of habit change, which is make it obvious. So a few things: keep your calendar up to date and have a way to immediately put appointments into it. Like I kind of struggled with this for several years, and I finally said, okay, I'm going to get a digital calendar, and I put the app for it on my phone. And now, anytime I have a meeting that I set up, a one-on-one meeting or a client meeting or anything else, almost always I put it right into my calendar. And that saves me time. I don't forget things. I don't have to go back and make a note and then put it in later. Just keeping things really simple that way. You can also turn off any extraneous notifications on your devices, such as social media, during your work time, so that you're not getting distracted. That's kind of the inverse of this law, is you have to make some things invisible so that you're not distracted or pulled away from what's important to you. You can also set reminders to alert you of appointments or even when to take breaks. That's something that makes it obvious, or a reminder to do a certain habit. Like if you're integrating a personal habit into your work day, like a quick little workout or doing some push-ups or drinking more water, or a gratitude practice, you can set alerts and you can use technology that way. Um, you can also have either have a list of the most important things you want to accomplish each day and or schedule time blocking for the most important revenue generating activities. I feel like this is a really great one that you can do to develop a habit. So if you have certain things that you know generate the most revenue for yourself or that are most important for your business to get done, whether you have a list of like the top 3 things for the day, uh, or just literally put blocks of time in your calendar and say, for this hour on Tuesday, I am going to only make calls to potential clients. Or at this time on Wednesday is always going to be the time that I connect in with my business partner so we can have a really effective meeting time. Whatever it is, those are some ways you can use that individually for the first law. Now, here's some fun things you can do specifically for your business using that first law of behavior change. And I call this staying top of mind. My first business coach was really big on this because obviously, if you want to make sure that your clients and customers and potential clients and customers, you got to make yourself obvious to them, right? So here's some simple things: cultivate an email list of potential clients, send them a monthly newsletter or a weekly email that lets them know about your products and services. And I always like, when I do this, strike a balance between attention grabbing, engaging, impactful, and fun. In fact, one of my clients I'm working with right now, he's marketing to he's a magician turned speaker, and he's marketing to universities and university students to go speak to the universities because there's a lot of money to that they allocate for that. So he's been sending out emails every week to connect with them so they can get to know him better and bring that into focus. You can also be more consistent on social media. You don't necessarily have to post Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn 10 times per day. You just need to be consistent with frequency and messaging. So, 3 well-designed, genuine posts per week can do way more than you realize. So, but you have to be obvious, right? I mean, that's probably one of the biggest keys in marketing. You have to be out in front of people. You have to cue them up to think, oh, maybe I should hire this person. Maybe I should buy their product. Maybe I should use them for what I'm looking for. Another thing I feel like, and I'm going to mention this more than once because I feel like it's such a valuable tool, is join a networking group, Business Networking International, or other networking groups that meets every week, encourages one-on-one meetings weekly with members, and requires every member to provide at least one referral per week. It's a great way to educate people on what you offer and stay top of mind with them. And these are people who want to refer business to you. So again, remember, you got to make yourself obvious. And these are some great ways to make you and your business much more obvious in a consistent sort of way. And these are also largely free ways that you can do it. I mean, BNI does cost a little bit, but there's other networking groups that are free. And essentially, social media and sending out emails, other than having perhaps an email platform that you might pay for, are essentially free. So there are ways that you can really get out there without having to have a huge advertising budget. All right, the second law of behavior change is make it attractive. And we got some attractive people here. And it's important to realize that this making something attractive for you as a habit is related to your dopamine, right? Because dopamine, what happens, and if you look on this little graph over at the left here, the way dopamine works is the first time you get a reward for something, and this could be anything. This could be you're on social media, you post something, and a bunch of people like it, and you're like, oh, that's so cool. And so you get a dopamine spike. Or you could meet someone, and maybe you're in the dating world, and you meet someone, and you're like, oh, this is so awesome. There's many different areas this could be. This could be related to the first time you go to a restaurant. This could be anything, but you tend to get that dopamine spike at the reward level the first time it happens, but the second, third, fourth times, and so on, the dopamine spike tends to come at the craving level. So when you desire something, because dopamine is really more of a desire chemical that triggers in your brain. So the more you can understand how when you start to crave something, that's when you need to shift and understand to get your habits formed where it's like, okay, I want to do this habit. What do I want to do? I've got the cue. Well, now my craving is go do this other thing versus maybe something you would have done before. I had a teacher years ago, and I remember she decided to help her quit smoking, that every time she had a craving to smoke, if she could, she was going to go take a walk. And so she would just go take like a 5 or 10 minute walk every time that she craved a cigarette. And pretty quickly, she was able to transform that habit of smoking into just going out and getting fresh air and moving her body a little bit. And that was a really powerful way for her to make that shift. So a way that you can do this for any habit that you're trying to change is after current habit, I will habit I need. This is called temptation bundling. And then after habit I need, I will habit I want. So, for example, you could be at work, and let's say after you are at your job, at your business, at your desk, after you finish a call with a potential client, uh, you're going to do something that you really need to be doing. And that could be, again, that could be posting to social media. That could be making a phone call, right? That's a habit you need to do. You make 5 calls to potential clients, or you send out 2 emails. And then after you do that, you do something you want. And that could be as simple as watching funny videos on YouTube or TikTok. That could be, taking a sip of a beverage that you've got there. That could be um, checking social media for 2 minutes, right? Anything that kind of gets you thinking in the way of like, okay, I want to do that. I really want to be doing this other thing, but I need to be doing something that I should be doing. And so you kind of sandwich it in between some of those other habits. And then let's look a little more at let's look at something that James Clear talks about, how family, friends, and society shape your habits. This kind of goes along with environmental design, but it really takes things a lot further into the people who you're around. So there's three kinds of people who can help us make good or bad habits. And those are the people who are close to us. Those are the many, like the vast majority of people. And then there's the powerful people, which would be people with status or fame, celebrities, famous people, or people we really look up to, like if we have a mentor or boss or just like a influential figure in our life. So the close, the many, and the powerful. And so for some examples of the close, right? Uh, an example I think about, I don't know about you guys, but I'm a huge fan of Stranger Things, the TV show. And I used to watch all these interviews of the Duffer Brothers, who are these twins who created that show. And it's really interesting because they went to Chapman University in California for film. Well, it just so happens that several of the people in their class have gone on already to become directors, TV show and movie creators, assistant directors, all these like really high prestige kinds of uh, positions in that industry. And it kind of goes to show you that when you put yourself around people who have what you want, people who are close to you, then you tend to do better in different areas. Most of you probably heard the saying, you become the average of the five people you're closest to. Sometimes the way that's described is your income will reflect the five people who you're closest to. So getting yourself around people who are going to support you in your habits, that goes a long way to making things easier. Another way of looking at this, when you look at the many, right? So there was a study done in the 50s by Solomon Asch, who was a professor of psychology. And I'm going to paraphrase this for you guys, but basically, they would have one person enter a room with a bunch of actors, and they would have up on a screen or up on a whiteboard or chalkboard, they would have these different lines drawn, and they would say which line is the same length as this one, and they would have all these different lines. And at first people were answering correctly, but then as people started to answer deliberately incorrectly, the person who didn't know what was going on would be like, what's going on here? And eventually they would start to also answer incorrectly because the whole group was doing it, right? We're naturally wired to be tribal. We're naturally wired to want to be a part of a group, to want to belong. And so the more that you can put yourself around in large groups, even communities, even that support your habit changes you want to make, then that can go a long way as well. And then finally, the powerful, these are the people who we often look up to. That might be more conscious for some of us. That might be more unconscious for some people. A lot of people look up to Taylor Swift because she's really famous, and so she has a lot of influence. Other people, whether you're talking about political leaders, famous movie stars, whatever it is, the more you can engage with and find people you want to emulate who have what you want, the easier it becomes for you to make habit changes as well. And kind of there's the lines that were part of that conforming to social norms experiment that I was talking about there on the right. So here's some ways you can use the second law, make it attractive. relative to your business. So use temptation bundling to put a work or business habit that you struggle with, such as making calls after an established habit like checking emails. And before a habit you really want to do, such as watching a funny video on TikTok or YouTube, or you insert whatever you like to do that kind of lets you blow off a little steam in the middle of the workday. Also, you can join a group or a culture that supports your business, such as a mastermind group, a business networking group, or even an online business community, which is kind of like what everybody's doing here, right? That supports and encourages you to follow through on established good habits for your business. I've found almost every business coach I've had has had some kind of community, either in person or online, been very helpful to establish new productive business habits. And then if you want to take that further, hiring a coach or a mentor who knows more than you, that's kind of a way to make use of that, uh, the powerful, right? It doesn't have to be a millionaire. It just needs to be someone who has knowledge, insights, and skills that you have yet to build in areas such as mindset, marketing, community building, leadership, wealth attraction, or anything that will help you to grow your business. And then if you want to take that further into your business to make your business more attractive, where really if first you were making sure you were top of mind with people, now you want to stimulate them to buy from you. So here's some examples. Personalize your messaging to your potential customers or clients so that they feel that what you offer is exactly made for them and will satisfy their needs. You can also demonstrate or explain how many other people are already using your product or service, so they should too. It might include something like 75% of all, fill in the blank, people use this type of product or this type of service. So you can also use customer and client testimonials in written and video form to demonstrate how people just like them have already experienced benefits of what you provide. I love this. I think this is such a great way to encourage new clients and new customers, because there really is very little that speaks as loudly as a satisfied customer or a satisfied client. And so getting those testimonials is just absolutely paramount. And then, of course, again, you can join like a BNI or other networking group that meets regularly, and you can use it not just to support your habits, but now you're also using it to put yourself out there and establish your credibility, your visibility to a group that then expands. You can then expand from there the market of people who trust you, know, like, and trust you, and want to buy from you. All right, so the third law is make it easy. You got to make habits easy. And as you can see here by this picture, you can either take the stairs or you can take the escalator. And I think unless you're trying to get some steps in, the escalator is usually the choice most of us are gonna go for. So making a habit easy is all about something called automaticity, where you want to get to this stage of your habits as quickly as you can. And a lot of people say, how long does it take to form a habit? And there's all these things that say it takes 28 days to form a habit. And some people are like, no, it takes 60 days to form a habit. And some people are like, no, it takes 6 months to form a habit. All of those are true, because it's not how long it takes, it's how many does it take? How many repetitions does it take to form a habit? Because some things you can repeat many times throughout the day. Some things you can easily repeat throughout each day, right? But it's not so much how many days, it's how often can you practice, and what's the quality of your practice and all this sort of thing. But ultimately it's the frequency. So one of the things that is I do to work with my clients, and I apply this to myself, is sort of this 2-minute rule. And it can be kind of a 2 to 5 minute thing, but you're wanting to get in the habit of doing something, even if you only do it for 2 minutes, right? And the extreme example of this that James Clear uses in Atomic Habits is one of the people who subscribed to his newsletter years ago said he was going to go to the gym. I think it was 5 days a week, or maybe it was every day. And he would go there for 5 minutes and then he would leave. And even though this sounds kind of ludicrous, it built the habit of just getting up, putting the clothes on, getting in the gym. He might move around, do a few exercises, then he would leave. Well, after a few days of that, he's like, well, this is ridiculous. Why am I just going there? Let's just start working out a little bit. But what it did is it built that consistent habit of saying, I'm just going to get in there and get past that hurdle, which oftentimes the first part of the habit is the hardest. Putting your running shoes on, putting your gym clothes on, changing into clothes to go to a certain networking event, right? Oftentimes that's the most difficult part. And if you can get used to doing that, the rest becomes much easier. And just to kind of give some examples of how we are, since we're talking about making things easy, I'm just going to give a quick synopsis of this. This was, if you look at on the left here, this was something that James Clear borrowed from a book called Guns, Germs, and Steel, which I listened to that book last year. It was a good book, a little bit tedious at points, but still really good. And it talks about, in one part of the book, it talks about how there's a reason why Europe and parts of Asia developed essentially much faster than other parts of the world. If you look back a few hundred years ago, and it's because there was a greater ease of flow of both communication as well as agriculture, particularly, that sprung up and that kept developing, multiplied over centuries and thousands of years. And if you look at Asia and Europe, they're all kind of connected on that uh, same horizontal. I forget if that's longitude or latitude, but they were able to spread and grow faster, whereas continents that are vertical like Africa and North and South America, they didn't have that benefit because different crops grew at different sections of like temperate zones and whatnot. And so that's a whole thing that James Clear talks about, and you can always check out Guns, Germs, and Steel if you want a deep dive into all that kind of stuff. Then if you look over on the right here, he talks about making good choices and bad choices. And if you keep making those good choices, which are going up, you're going to have a good day. And if you keep making choices that are bad or that are destructive or limiting, you're going to tend to have a bad day. And essentially, this kind of goes back to the hard part is getting the habit established. Once you do, you've got momentum, and it's easier to make more of those good choices that lead to good outcomes that you want. So a few things to apply the third law, make it easy. I love this. My one of my business coaches taught me this a few years ago. Automate, delegate, outsource, delete. I would definitely write that down and put that on your wall somewhere. Automate, delegate, outsource, delete. These are all ways to make your business easier for you, especially as a small business owner. Anything you can automate, whether that's automated emails or text messages that go out to people, or automated social media posts, whether that is automating some area of your um, oh gosh, your bookkeeping, whether you're automating something with your calendar or reminders, automation helps so much. Of course, now we have chat GPT and all that fun stuff that can also kind of speed things up. Automation is definitely something that if you haven't incorporated into your business, you'll want to think about ways you can start doing that. Also, if you have employees or a virtual assistant, delegating things to them, right? You want to delegate, and really we could go ahead and include outsourcing in this as well, because outsourcing is where maybe you hire a bookkeeper, right? Maybe you hire someone to do your taxes so you don't have to spend hours figuring that stuff out. Uh, Outsourcing, sometimes you can get to a point in your business where you outsource people who handle most of your emails, and they can create emails in your voice or your social media. There's so many things you can now delegate and outsource to people. It's really kind of amazing. And all of those things frees you up to be doing the things that you're good at and or the things that you love to do the most, which gives you more energy, it gives you more time, and it helps you to be more effective. And you can focus on the revenue generating activities that are most important. And the last one in those four is delete. Oftentimes we keep doing things in business that we really don't even need to be doing anymore. And maybe it's an old habit that we had. And sometimes you can just say, you know what, this isn't working. Like I was a podcaster for 3 years and I was doing it to grow my business and it helped a little, but I really didn't have the returns that I wanted from it. And I just said, you know what, I'm going to let this go. It's been fun. I learned a lot. I made a lot of friends from it. I had a lot of guests on. It helped me get on other podcasts, but it just wasn't really working for me. And so I just let it go. And so you're going to find things that fall into that category. And then lastly, make sure your environment is conducive to the work that you do. Uh, this can be huge, and I know this is different for each person, but designing your environment, whether it's your office, whether you have a home office, a lot of times I like to go work at a coffee shop because I feel more invigorated when I'm around people. But then other times I just like to be at home working at my home office because the noise and the distraction is too much for me. So if you can have that freedom, you want to be able to do that and design your environment. And then lastly, with making it easy, how can you make things easier for your customers and clients to find you or to choose you? Well, map out your customer client experience via your sales funnel. Do you have a sales funnel? Find ways to make it easier to find you, to access information about your products and services, to make it even easier to buy from you. I mean, I've been guilty of this, and a lot of other people have too, where sometimes you might have a website or some other portal where people can find out what you're doing, but then it's hard for them just to click and like pay you, right? You want people to do that. Also, automate, like if you have the kind of product or service where people might be a repeat customer, uh, putting something on automatic, right? Like sometimes I will buy a product and I'll have it shipped to me every 2 or 3 months, right? Like certain beverages I have that are healthy, that are like these powdered beverages, I might have them ship it to me every few months. Well, that's a good way that they put into practice that helps keep things flowing. And then, which that kind of gets into, again, automate, delegate, outsource, delete. How can you do that with your customer experience? And then use social media as well as custom apps to provide information, insights, and experiences for your clients and customers so you can get them what they want faster and easier. All right, we're in the home stretch here. Fourth law, make it satisfying. Essentially, when you're doing stuff, because we live in a world that is so based on delayed gratification, sometimes you have to give yourself an immediate reward for things that you do, right? And this can be anything from once you've accomplished a really challenging task during your day, maybe you take a 5 minute break and you go out and get some sunshine, and maybe you drink some coffee or whatever that works for you. Um, there's so many different things you can do with that where you give yourself an immediate reward for a delayed reward gratification thing that you've already done. And this can be in terms of business. This can also be in terms of your personal habits. One of the things that example that James Clear gives is if you're trying to break a bad habit, like let's say you're trying not to spend money. Maybe you're trying not to spend money on eating out. So every time you would have normally gone out, but instead you cook food at home, you calculate how much money you would save, put that into an account, and make that an account for a jacket you want to buy, a vacation you want to take, or something else that's going to be really meaningful to you. And this kind of comes in where you can also start using habit tracking. I love habit tracking. I tend to only do it with a few of my habits, but it can be so much fun where after you do the habit, you have some way to check it off or record the time you did it. Or in my case, like a lot of times I'll use a food log to record the food I ate, right? So if you're trying to burn calories and burn fat, that's a great way to do that and track what you're doing. But tracking habits in and of itself, it can be very rewarding and it can be satisfying. And so when you see like, oh wow, I have done this same habit for the last 45 days, or maybe even the last 60 days or whatever, and I only missed like 3 in that time. Well, then you start to feel like, yeah, I've got momentum and I feel really good about what I'm doing. That makes you want to keep the habit going. Now, this is something that James Clear doesn't mention, but I feel like is so important. You have to have a clear why for your habit. You have to have a clear purpose, because the why really in a lot of ways is as important, if not more important than the desire or the what. The more clear your why or your purpose is, then the more you're going to want to do something. I feel like that is a big part of what makes things satisfying, is if I say, okay, I want to do this, and here's some examples. So in the personal training world, they talk about this a lot, where oftentimes someone goes into a gym thinking, okay, I want to build X amount of muscle, I want to lose X amount of weight. And that's great. Those are results based purposes. But the more you can get into a process based purpose where, it's like, I just want to feel better, right? That's something you can do every time you work out. It's like, oh, I feel a little bit better. I feel more energy. I feel stronger. I feel more invigorated. I got that dopamine hit, or whatever other things that come up. Sometimes people also have the long-term why of, I want to reduce risk of disease. I want to be healthier when I'm older. I want to have strong muscles when I'm older. All these kind of things are what you eventually want to work towards, even if you have some really strong results-based why or purpose for your habits as well. So let's go ahead and bring this around to, how can you make this more satisfying in your business? Well, give yourself an immediate reward when you hit milestones, right? Like if you hit a financial milestone, if you hit a certain number of clients, or even if you just, for example, maybe you got your website up and you're like, I finally got that up, or I cleaned up my social media, or I cleaned up my emails. Give yourself some kind of a reward for accomplishing those. And then develop a clear why for your business as well. Like you might, in terms of a business mission or vision statement, but try to keep it clear, try to keep it simple, and ask yourself, is this motivating to me? Does it help me with that? And of course, tracking your business progress regularly and periodically to examine that progress and celebrate each win, from a new client or a customer to, again, just accomplishing something simple that you do. And then lastly, when you were looking at applying this in the business to getting satisfied customers, um, whenever possible, over deliver on what a customer or client expects. If you can not only give them what you promised them, but maybe a little something more, whether that's, if you're a service-based client, maybe you give them something, a discount to come back to you again. If you're a product-based client, maybe it's something similar, or maybe you send, you ask them to be on your newsletter and you can give them additional information related to the kind of products that you have. Then you can develop ways to stay in communication with those past and current clients, through email or texting or social media, because that kind of thing also, I think, delivers additional value to people. And you can share encouragement or kind of love on your clients. I feel like that's a place that any business that has really been successful does that to some degree. And certainly, I think small businesses can do that really well. And do kind things to encourage the behaviors you want from your team or your employees, right? Every time someone on your team does something well, edify them, raise them up, do something to of course, if that's the kind of thing they like. I know some people don't like that as much, but usually there's some way to show your gratitude and appreciation that really builds your team up. All right, we're going to wrap up here. So, last thing I want to say is, when you are doing all this stuff, don't freak out if you get going with a habit and you drop the ball, or if you find it a little hard to get a habit started, right? I mean, you might be going for 10 days on a new habit and then you drop the ball for a week. Well, don't freak out. Don't worry about it. You can always get going again. You can always keep things moving. You can go back and use these resources. So don't give up either, right? Don't give up on it. Just try to make it that every time you do break a streak, don't miss more than one day, right? Get right back in it the next day and have some kind of a plan for how to do that. All right, guys, we're at 102. Thanks for hanging out, and sorry about a few of our technical difficulties. Does anybody have questions before we wrap up here?
Yeah, we'll give folks just a moment to post anything in the chat that they might like there. Also able to follow up with Damian there, um, excuse me, through his email, also his website there and a phone number as well. Damian, I really appreciate you coming back and visiting with us. These are all great things. Sometimes the habit is just to take the time out to, to focus on what your needs might be and that sort of things. That's always great to just be reminded of that. Um, don't see any questions. But Damon, you're coming back to us at the end of March. Do you want to like preview that a little bit?
Yeah, I will say one quick thing quickly that I did a mindset episode a month ago, and if you all haven't checked that out, I would check that out
Yes.
on here. And then next month we're going to be talking about leadership, and I'm really trying to make these kind of build on each other. So we talked about mindset today, we talked about habits, and now we're going to be talking about leadership. So if you want to learn how to leverage leadership in your business, whether that's leading a virtual assistant, whether that's leading your employees, whether that's becoming a leader in a networking group so that you can attract more clients that way. There's a lot of ways you can use leadership. And as John C. Maxwell says, who wrote the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership, he's basically like, hey, you never really reach your full potential until you become a leader. And I believe that in a lot of cases, that is true. So we'll be talking about that in March.
Yes, very, very much looking forward to that. We've run a little bit over, but thank you guys for sticking with us today. It was a little bit tricky there at the beginning, but again, thank you, Damien, and we'll see you guys at our next Toolkit Tuesday, and hopefully you'll join us also to see Damien at the end of March. So talk to you soon. Thanks, Damien.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.